remember a couple days ago, Rob had posted up a photo of the tour laminate, and I was curious what your thoughts are when you saw the statistics of that tour laminate when it showed all the dates and the songs played and the cities and countries. Because if you look at it, it's almost like, I mean, you played as many shows, or if not more, than the actual Grateful Dead played.
No, we played more than them for sure.
Yeah. What's it like to see those numbers? What goes through your head when you see those numbers, when you think about all those miles and shows?
I need to get a life.
It's got to be.
No, I mean, I'm blown away by it. I mean, it's impressive.
Yeah, it's a testament to the band. Totally.
I mean, I've only been around I'm going on 12 years now, so some of the, they got 8 more years on me, the people that started this band, so it's quite extraordinary to me. And, I've definitely spent the last 12 years traveling all over the world doing this thing, so it's mind-bending.
Well, and you've been involved with this music your whole life, and I'm curious about what keeps you so interested in it. What is it about the music and the vibe and the whole scene in general that to this day it's still just as interesting probably as it was the first time you ever played with those guys?
Well, I remember the first time I ever played with these guys, and this was a few years before I was in the band. I was in New Orleans, and I was playing with Phil Lesh.
Yep.
And I had a night off, so I went to go see him, and I didn't quite get the whole concept. But when Scott Larnard, their keyboard player, passed away, and they asked me to do a tour with them to help them out, I went to the first show, and they were doing a spring 77 recreation. Yeah. And the only time I ever toured Grateful Dead was spring of 77.
Yeah.
I was in college, and I had the time to do it. So here we are in the middle of, it was about the 4th song, and it hit me. It's like, I get this now. I see. They're not recreating a show note for note. They're recreating the atmosphere of that show, the arrangements of the tunes, the stage setup, the sounds of the instruments, but everything was improvised.
Yeah.
And therein lies the reason why every night it's new for me, because this is what I've trained my whole life to do. I mean, I'm a jazz enthusiast. I study to this day jazz improvisation and harmony, and for me it's a never ending palette. It goes on and on, right to the horizon and beyond.
Yeah.
The choices are endless. It's as much as your imagination can conjure up. I mean, that's it. That's the limitation. And so for me, every day is like a brand new canvas and a brand new birth, and it's a beautiful thing, to watch it, the colors explode on the screen, if you will.
Well, what's crazy about it is that I love the concept, and it's what's wild is it's the only band that concept would work with.
Yes, pretty much. There are no other bands. I mean, you could make a case that you could do a Fish thing and do that, but not quite.
Yeah.
The conversation that the Grateful Dead had with each other especially in the heyday, is unparalleled in rock music. That's for sure. It's much more akin to a avant-garde jazz ensemble that's not set up like the traditional jazz ensemble,
yeah,
where you have, which is what most bands do. Most of the bands that call themselves jam bands, in my estimation, do this thing I called roller coaster rock.
Yeah.
And it's you have the front car is the soloist, and the back cars are everybody following the soloist, and the music goes up and it goes down.
Yep.
And it goes up and it goes down, and then you get another soloist, and the music goes up and it goes down. With the Grateful Dead, it was like a double helix in the sky.
Yeah.
It twisted, it turned, it went to unpredictable places because they're really, as Phil put it, everyone was first among equals.
Yeah, agreed.
So there was no, even though everybody, because our brains are set to, well, there's a lead guitar player. Jerry Garcia was a lead guitar player. Yeah, he's a lead guitar player. But listen to what everybody else is doing around him. They're doing their own thing. And it's all a give and take conversation, and that's what I love about this music. And there's no other band that does it.
Oh yeah, and it's such a delicate balance. I mean, it I think of almost like, even when you mention jazz ensembles, I also think like bluegrass too, is that it's like a team of horses,
Yeah.
That if one horse falls, the whole thing falls.
Exactly. And each part is delicate and precious, and yes, if one of the parts falls, the rest falls.
What is it about the music of the Dead, all the years that you've played with members of the Dead and with Dark Star, what surprised you as you've gone along playing this music and being in that atmosphere?
It's that the verve of the people never wanes. It's always there. It is like church on so many levels. The devout come and worship, not worship the band, they worship the music, and so to take them to the higher place. Yeah. Like Buddhists, Yeah. It's like realizing their higher selves, and that's what this does, and it never stops. It never stops. The crowds are always there, and and even for the principals, I mean, it's amazing that they go out to play and people just eat it up and they love it. It's a beautiful thing to see after all these years, and it will continue for many more years.
Well, what's crazy about it is, like, they were the band that kicked it off for me. That was like, I was 9 years old and I had a really cool, my aunt and her boyfriend, and he had like a Dead hat on, and I asked him what it was. And I was 9 years old, and he gives me a copy of Skeletons in the Closet, and then that was it. I'd never heard anything like that, and
yeah. At 9, that's great.
So it becomes the Odyssey,
Yeah, that's kind of like what it was like for me as a little kid hearing the Beatles for the first time.
Oh, totally. Do you remember where you were and what you were doing the first time you heard the Dead? Or how old you were?
Yeah. I was 14, and I was in my friend's living room. I was always in bands, as a kid, and most of the musicians I played with were older. So these guys were 2 or 3 years older than I was, later teens, and we were sitting in this guy's living room, and he had an acoustic guitar, and he was playing a song, and I was just like, my jaw hit the floor, like what is that? And he goes, it's this song by this band, The Grateful Dead, and boom, it was like resonating, ding, 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 Grateful Dead, Grateful Dead. Yeah. And I was like, well, what's the name of the song? He goes, it's called Casey Jones. I was like, Casey Jones. How cool is this? And then how when you're not aware of something, you're not aware of it. But when you are aware of it, all of a sudden it's everywhere.
Oh, of course, 100%.
It was always there, but I just wasn't aware of it. I wasn't tuned in. And all of a sudden I was in a local mall near my house, and the record store was festooned with Grateful Dead. And they had just released the Skull and Roses album. And there it was. So, and then like a day later, I remember visiting my cousins. My parents took my brother and I to visit my cousins, and I had an older cousin. She was about 4 or 5 years older than I was. And I think she might have just started college. And we're sitting in her den, and I'm looking through her records. And all of a sudden I came across a Grateful Dead record, and I said, do you mind if I borrow this? She goes, go ahead, take it. So I went home, and it was Working Man Dead. And the reason I borrowed it because it had Casey Jones on it.
Yeah, that's my favorite Dead record.
So it's really interesting. I had also heard on the radio Uncle John's Band.
Yep.
So the start of that record is Uncle John's Band, and if you flip it over, the last song is Casey Jones. So for whatever stupid reason, that's what I did. I put on Uncle John's Band. As soon as the song was over, took the needle off the record, flipped the record over, put Casey Jones on. I didn't listen to any of the other stuff. So I call a friend of mine up, my best friend. I said, you got to come over and hear this shit. So put Uncle John's band on, and he's completely blown out of his socks. And we start talking, and of course the record keeps going now. I don't flip it over. And next song is High Time.
Yep.
And we stopped in mid-conversation after about 5 bars of the music. I was like, oh, this is fucking brilliant. And then we listened to the whole record, and that was it. And I was done. I was cooked after.